1 Samuel chapter 15. Saul defeat the Amalekite. One day Samuel said to Saul, "It was the Lord who told me to anoint you as king of his people Israel. Now listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I have decided to settle account with the nation of Amalek for oppressing Israel when they came from Egypt. Now go and completely destroy the entire Amalekite nation, men, women, children, babies, cattle, sheep, goats, camel, and donkey." So Saul mobilized his army at the Tanaim. There were 200,000 soldiers from Israel and 10,000 men from Judah. Then Saul and his army went to a town of the Amalekite and lay in wait in the valley. Saul sent his warning to the Kenite, "Move away from where the Amalekites live, or you will die with them, for you shall kindness to all the people of Israel when they came up from Egypt." So the Kenite packed up and left. Then Saul slaughtered the Amalekite from Havilah all the way to Shur, east of Egypt. He captured Agag, the Amalekite king, but completely destroyed everyone else. Saul and his men spared Agag's life and kept the best of sheep and goat and cattle and fat ham and left everything in fact that appealed to them. They destroyed only what was worthless or poor quality. The Lord rejected Saul. Then the Lord said to Samuel, "I'm sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command." Samuel was so deeply moved when he heard this, and he cried out to the Lord all night. Early the next morning, Samuel went to find Saul. Someone told him Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument to himself. Then he went to the Gilgal. When Samuel finally found him, Saul greeted to him cheerfully. "May the Lord bless you," he said. "I have carried out the Lord's command." "Then what is all the bleating of sheep and goat and the lowing of cattle I heard?" Samuel demanded. "It's true that the army spares the best of the sheep, goats, and cattle," Samuel admitted, "but they are going to sacrifice them to the Lord your God. We have destroyed everything else." Then Samuel said to the Saul, "Stop. Listen to what the Lord told you last night." "What did he tell you?" Saul asked. And Samuel told him, "Although you might think little of yourself, are you not the leader of the tribe of Israel? The Lord has anointed you king of Israel, and the Lord sent you on a mission and told you, 'Go and completely destroy the sinner, the Amalekite, until they are all dead.' Why haven't you obeyed the Lord? Why did you rush for the plunder and do what was evil in the Lord's sight?" "But I did obey the Lord," Saul insists. "I carried out the mission he gave me. I brought back King Agag, but I destroyed everyone else. Then my troop brought in the best of the sheep, goat, cattle, and blood to sacrifice the Lord your God in Gilgal." But Samuel replied, "What is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offering and sacrifice offering, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of ram. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worship idol. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." So plead for forgiveness. Then Saul admitted to Samuel, "Yes, I have sinned. I have disobeyed your instruction and the Lord's command. For I was afraid of people and did what they demanded. But now please forgive my sin and come back with me so that I may worship the Lord." But Samuel replied, "I will not go back with you, since you have rejected the Lord's command. He has rejected you as king of Israel." As Samuel turned to go, Saul tried to hold him back and tore the hem of his robe. And Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to someone else. one who is better than you, and he who is the glory of Israel will not lie, nor will he change his mind, for he is not human, that he should change his mind. Then Saul pleaded again, I know I have sinned, but please at least honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel by coming back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God. So Samuel finally agreed and went back with him, and Saul worshipped the Lord. Samuel excused King Agag. Then Samuel said, Bring King Agag to me. Agag arrived full of hope, for he thought, Surely the worst is over and I have been spared. But Samuel said, As your sword has killed the son of many mothers, now your mother will be childless. And Samuel cut Agag to pieces before the Lord at Agag. Then Samuel went home to Ramah, and Saul returned to his house to Gibeah of Saul. Samuel never went to meet Saul again, but he mourned constantly for him, and the Lord was sorry he had ever made Saul king of Israel. Chapter 16. Samuel anointed David as king. Now the Lord said to Samuel, You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as the king of Israel, so fill your flask with olive oil and go to the Bethlehem. Find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king. But Samuel asked, How can I do that? If Saul heard about this, he will kill me. Take a heifer with you, the Lord replied, and say that you have come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you which of his sons to anoint for me. So Samuel did as the Lord instructed. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elder of the town came trembling to meet him. What's wrong? They asked. No, do you come in peace? Yes, Samuel replied. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Purify yourself and come with me to the sacrifice. Then Samuel performed the purification rite for Jesse and his son, and invited them to the sacrifice too. When they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eli and thought, Surely this is the Lord anointed. But the Lord said to Samuel, Don't judge by his presence or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see sins the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse told his son Abinadab to step forward and walk in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, This is not the one the Lord has chosen. Next, Jesse summoned Shimei. But then Samuel said, Neither this is the one the Lord has chosen. In the same way, all 7 of Jesse's sons were present to Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, The Lord has not chosen any of these. Then Samuel asked, Are these all the sons you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse replied. But he's out of the field watching the sheep and the goat. Send for him at once, Samuel said. We will not sit down to eat until he arrives. So Jesse sent for him. He was dark and handsome, with beautiful eyes, and the Lord said, This is the one, anoint him. So as David stood there among his brothers, Samuel took the flask of olive oil he had brought and anointed David with the oil. Then, and the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. Then Samuel returned to Ramah. David. Service in Saul's court. Now the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and the Lord sent a tormenting spirit that filled him with distress and fear. Some of Saul's servants said to him, A tormenting spirit from God is troubling you. Let us find a good musician to play the harp. Whenever the tormenting spirit troubles you, he will play smooth music, and you will soon be well again. All right, Saul said, find me someone who plays well and bring him here. One of the servants said, One of the Jesse's sons from Bethlehem is a talented harp player. Not only that he is a brave warrior, a man of war, and has good judgment, he is also a fine-looking young man, and the Lord is with him. So Saul sent a message to Jesse to say, Send me your son David, the servant. Jesse responded by sending David to Saul, along with a young goat and a donkey loaded with bread and whisking wineskin full of wine. So David went to Saul and began serving him. Saul loved David very much, and David became his armor bearer. Then Saul sent word to Jesse asking, "Please let David remain in my service, for I am very pleased with him." And whenever the torment spirit from God troubled Saul, David would play the harp. Then Saul would feel better, and the torment spirit would go away. Chapter 17. Goliath challenged the Israelites. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Saul camp in Judah and Azekah at the Absalom. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hill, with the valley between them. The Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out the Philistine rank to face the force of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with iron spirit, and that weighed 50 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a shield. Goliath stood and shouted a tongue across the Israel. "Why are you all coming out to fight?" He asked. "I'm the Philistine champion, but you are only the servant of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he killed me, then we will be your slave. But if I kill him, you will be our slave. I defy the army of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Jesse sent David to Saul's camp. Now David was the son of a man named Jesse, a Ephraim from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. Jesse was an old man at that time, and he had 8 sons. Jesse's 3 oldest sons, Eliah, Abel, and Shema, had already joined Saul's army to fight the Philistines. David was the youngest son. David's 3 older brothers stayed with Saul's army, but David went back and forth so he could help her father with the sheep of Bethlehem. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion shot in the front of the Israel's arm. One day Jesse said to David, "Take this basket of the roasted grain and then 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brother and give them 10 cuts of cheese to the captain. See how your brothers are getting along and bring back a report on how they are doing." David's brothers were with Saul and all the Israelite army at the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early in the morning with a gift as Jesse has directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israel army was leaving for the battle, shaped with shouts and battle cries. Soon the Israel and the Philistine force stood to face each other, army against army. David left his scene with the keeper of supply and hurried out to the rank to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine rank. Then David heard him shout his turn to the army of the Israel. As soon as the Israel army saw him, they began to run away in fright. "Have you seen that? The giant?" the man asked. "He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who killed him. He will give the man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempt from paying taxes." David asked the soldiers standing nearby, "What will a man get for killing this Philistine and end his defense of Israel? Who is the pagan Philistine anyway, that he is allowed to defy the army of the living God?" And this man gave David the same reply. They said, "Yes, that is the reward for killing him." But when David's older brother Eliah had heard David talking to the man, he was angry. "What are you doing around here anyway?" he demanded. "What about these few sheep you are supposed to taking care of? I know about your pride and deceive. You just want to see the battle. What have I done now? David replied. I was only asking a question. He walked over to see others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. David kills Goliath. Don't worry about the Philistine, David said to Saul. I will go fight him. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possible win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since he's young. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goat, he said. When a lion or a bear come to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turned on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lion and bear, and I will do this to the pagan Philistine too. For he has defied the army of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claw of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine. So finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. Then Saul gave David his own arm, a bronze helmet, and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped and the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in this, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So Saul took them off again. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them into his sharp bag. Then, armed only with his sharp staff and a sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. Goliath walked out toward David with his shield bare and ahead of him, sling in contempt at his ruby-faced boy. Am I a dog? He roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the name of his God. Come over here, and I will give you flesh to the bird and the wild animal, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you with the name of the Lord of heaven's army, the God of the army of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head, and then I will give the dead body of your men to the bird and the wild animal, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescued his people, but not with the sword and the spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching his servant back and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in forehead. The stone sunk in the Goliath's stomach and fell face down on the ground. So David tramped over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled the sword from and David used it to kill him and cut off his head. Israel rose and the Philistine. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah gave a great shout of triumph and rushed after the Philistines, chasing them as far as Gash and the gate of Ekron. The body of dead and wounded valley was stranded all along the road from Saram as far as Gash and Ekron. Then the Israel army returned and plundered the deserted Philistine camp. David took the Philistine head to Jerusalem, but he stored the immense army in his own tent. As Saul watched David go out to fight the Philistine, he asked Amalek, the commander of his army, Amalek, whose son is this young man? I really don't know, Amalek declared. Well, find out who he is, the king told him. As soon as David returned from killing Goliath, Aaron brought him to the king with Philistine head still in his hand. Tell me about your father, young man, Saul said. And David replied, his name is Jesse, and we lived in the Bethlehem. And then we'll go into the chapter 18. So those 3 chapters is talking about Saul, how disobeyed the Lord's commandment, and how God point David as another king and reject Saul. And that is the story at the beginning of the David. But in the rules, chapter rules, we already know how David's great-grandmother, how come? Yeah, it's rules. And then that is the stories tell us should always obey God's commandment. Alright, so that is today's Bible learning. Hope everyone like it. God bless you, everyone. Let's see you tomorrow.